Hi, the next 5 minutes we'll be looking at the Nightwatch by Rembrandt with the original name of the militia company of District 2 under the command of Captain Frans Bannek-Kok, a painting in the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, and it's about life-size, these figures. And it's called the Nightwatch because it's really rather dark, but it's not taking place at night. It's just because Rembrandt used chiaroscuro, this effect where you get these spotlights on certain elements of the painting, creating this sense of space and depth, but also because he used the color pigment smalt. And that's a pigment that is used for the color blue, but over time changes into this muddy brown. He knew that this color changed over time, but he really loved the fact that it was a really coarse pigment, creating this 3D effect in his painting. But this is the reason why you hardly ever see the color blue in Rembrandt's paintings. It also was a lot larger originally. It was cut back when it was moved out of the original place, the meeting place where it was hung, which you can see on the right-hand side, where the militia met. We know that because there was a copy made by the patron, the captain, for his own personal use, and that copy is now in the National Gallery in London. Militia companies were voluntary guards in the Netherlands, and they protected the cities. They were like policemen / firemen. And yearly they would have their group portrait painted, which would look something like this, a bit like a school photograph. Everyone kind of lined up, everyone would chip in. How different, of course, is Rembrandt's painting. This is not just a lineup of faces. This is the militia in action. This is what it would be like to come across them in the street. This is how to portray something where you can actually imagine the sound and the feeling of seeing them crossing your path in the street. And it's things like the drummer or the barking dog, which gives you that sense of the sounds, but also people loading their guns. He's even got a little gunpowder boy next to him, or that flag bearer who points in the direction in which they would be marching. So this is a play being performed in front of our eyes, very much what Rembrandt is all about. He loved the theatre, and his paintings are about seeing people in action. We are also pointed at this little mascot in the middle of the painting, a bit like those mascots you see at football games, for instance. She carries the emblems of the Cloveneers, which is that bird she's carrying on her belt around her waist. But there's also something else that's really rather interesting, and that's if you look at her face, she looks a lot like Rembrandt's wife, Saskia van Uylenburg. Saskia died in the year that the Nightwatch was made, rather sadly. And it was a huge and very important commission. He was right at the top of his peak of his career and his popularity in Amsterdam. And after this painting, after Saskia died, his luck really turned and things really changed. And he got rather depressed, and his fortunes, of course, eventually changing as well. But this painting, he's still at the peak of his career, and he's got 18 members of the Civic Guard chipping in to have themselves portrayed in this group portrait. Now, we know that there were 18 members paying because of a contract, but also because at a later date, the shield was added with all the 18 names. But interestingly, of course, there's way more people that Rembrandt depicts in this painting. They're not just 18, he's adding all these extras, very much like you would see in a play or a movie, to add to that sense of a group and making it something that feels really real, because if you'd come across a group like that, you wouldn't really know how many there were. He also does that by painting in these different styles. Some of the faces are highly finished with really thin brush strokes. Others are really roughly painted. And that, of course, is because our eyes don't focus on everything at the same time. We can't do that. Not everything is in focus. And so by leaving certain things rather roughly painted, it also adds to this sense of movement and a group in action. Another really clever thing he does is give some of the extras in the painting old-fashioned costumes, and with that he highlights the long tradition of this militia. Of course, everything taking place in Amsterdam, and some of you might know that the crest of Amsterdam is these three crosses, and very cleverly the shadow of the hand of the captain creates this wonderful place for us to focus our eyes to look at the embroidery in Willem van Ruitenburg's costume, which has these three crosses firmly locating it in Amsterdam. If you go to Amsterdam now, it's still in the midst of the Operation Nightwatch. They're doing a lot of restoration and a lot of research into this painting with daily updates on the Rijksmuseum website, and really interesting to follow. Now, if you want to see the long version of this talk, you want to learn more about Rembrandt or any other art historical facts, head to arthistoricallondon.com, and I'm sure there is more for you to watch.